at the bottom. Flip it up to give us more.
Oh, that way. Okay. Okay, we're live.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to
This live stream. So we thought that it'd be good to talk about health, what health really is, because a lot of people have some misconceptions about that, and just to talk about some really practical, easy, healthy habits that you could incorporate into your life. So how do you define health?
health is, I would say, relating to the body, the condition the body's in. Does it have the ability to do all that it naturally does with ease? So do you have high blood pressure, diabetes? High blood pressure meaning that your arteries are somewhat blocked and blood can't flow properly.
Mm-hmm.
Diabetes meaning your body's not metabolizing the sugar properly, so it's not getting to your cells. So health would just be, being in a state where your body can function the way it's supposed to, peacefully and easily.
And what's the first step into having a healthy mindset? Like, what do you think that it means to have a healthy mindset? When people say think positively and all this kind of stuff, so for instance, right now, I am leading a NoFap challenge, and we've spent the past 30 days kind of trying to identify where our struggles have been all our lives and what type of thinking has led us to these unhealthy habits. And so for someone who's really stuck in a cycle of really unhealthy, self-destructive behavior, what's the first step into beginning to think positively from that?
Wow. So we're talking about how we think,
Mm-hmm.
how we feel about ourselves, and how we feel about what we're doing. In this case, we're talking about NoFap, which means we're trying to refrain from self-gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to understand who we are, because I think that's how we empower ourselves. I believe when we understand who we are and what we're truly capable of, then we can tap into those assets, those abilities that we as humans and spiritual beings have access to. So empowerment is going to come from, knowing who you are and how to use use those abilities and powers.
So when you say something like yeah, who are you, who you are, what is that? Because a lot of people, they just would say, I think a lot of people I talk to right now, they would just say, well, I'm an addict, or I am addicted to porn right now. I am unhappy. I am feeling socially awkward, whatever. Like, people, I really identify with how they feel, and then they think that that's who they are. So how do you detach from those feelings and then realize who you really are, and who are you really?
Cool. Couple of questions there. Good questions. First and foremost, you said, so when somebody is, trying to withdraw from that behavior, first and foremost, we need to recognize that who we are, and then the labels that we use to identify ourselves. So say, for example, somebody asks me what I do or who I am. And if I say I'm an instructor, I'm a trainer, I'm a father, I'm a husband, which I'm not, but I'm just kidding. But all these are labels. So even when we talk about our religion, our political affiliation, our sexual orientation, those are all labels. Those are ways that we try to, I guess the ego would use that to define itself, because if you don't have labels, then who are you really, which is kind of what you were asking, and who we really are. So when we feel bad about, not being able to sustain, the period of time we're supposed to be doing NoFap, then, start judging ourselves. Who's doing the judging? Actually, the ego is the one that's doing the judging, because the true self, the higher self, does not judge. The higher self is your consciousness, it's your awareness, it's your presence. It's the part of you that kind of, you watch your ego self, your carnal, your body. That's the part of you that's watching that. And so what makes it challenging for people is when they identify the self as the ego self, as the body, as the thoughts, as the career, as the stuff, or as Eckhart Tolle likes to call it, the form. There's the formless, and the part of us that's formless doesn't have a label. It just is, but it's us.
So if someone is really experiencing a lot of like thoughts like, I am stupid, I can't get anything done, I can't overcome this, I can't stop masturbating, I can't stop watching porn, what, like, when that thought hits you, what's the actual process that you need to go through to think of that differently? Like, the second that thought comes to your mind of like, I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not that, then like, how do you, like, in that moment, what do you do?
Okay. Part of that is like talking about meditation, or the ability to decipher or separate the egoic self or the form self from the higher self. So one of the simplest things you can do is to be in the now. And when we're in the now, then we have the opportunity to connect to that consciousness, that awareness, that presence. But even easier than that is to, and they say it when you meditate all the time, but just pay attention to your breathing. Because what you're going to find is that you're breathing and you're also paying attention to the breathing. And the part of you that's paying attention to the breathing, that is the part of you that is the formless part. And the part that the breathing self, obviously that's coming from the body, but that gives you a chance to distinguish the two aspects of self. And so when you are saying these things to yourself, that's the same thing as breathing. And there's a part of you that's hearing you say this. And it won't judge you. If it judges you, then you slip back into the ego. So now we're just dealing with that same aspect. So let me make that a little clearer. What I mean is, like, if I say, I've been on NoFap for 27 days and then last night I messed up, and man, I'm so stupid, and how did I do that? And I just hate myself. All of that conversation is coming from the ego self. See, the higher self, first of all, doesn't speak in words, but it would never judge you. You're not going to judge yourself. Your higher self, your consciousness, your awareness, your love, your peace, all of those things represent the aspect of you that basically is the place where we want to operate from most of our lives. We were talking a little bit earlier about, being in a place where, you just feel good about your life and you feel good about who you are. And
so you're saying to access that part of you, you need to just be present, be in the now. That's not, because like, we think that these thoughts are coming to us right in this moment, but then anytime you like start to think about that thought, you're not in the moment anymore. So it's like, like being the thing that can just watch the thoughts come and go and not identify with it, let it carry you until your next moment, but just like sit back and just watch it. And then I don't know, it is hard though. It is hard when you are stuck in repeated cycles, or you feel like you can't get out of a loop, because it's one thing to try to stop a habit that like you don't really think too much about, but when you have been doing a toxic thing for so long, and for years and years and years, then to try to change that, it feels so unnatural at first, or it feels so like you can't really tell the difference between like forcing something and genuinely changing your patterns, like, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, two things for sure. First of all, you said it's so hard. And so one thing we really want to focus on is what we're saying to ourselves and what we're telling ourselves. I don't care if it is hard. Maybe it is hard, and I'm not saying delude yourself, but you at least have to start with saying, okay, this is challenging, but I can do this. I'm not saying it's hard because it's kind of defeatist. That's the first thing. So we're going to say, yeah, it's challenging. I'm up for a challenge. Secondly, is the toxic part about it. So when we say it's toxic, that kind of puts a negative spin on it.
Okay.
And so that's a label. I was talking about labeling. We don't have to label the action. The higher self is not going to label it. You're either going to, because when you label it, you kind of weighs it. It puts more weight to it. And now it's weighing on you. as a negative thing. It's a behavior, it's an action, it's something that happened, you know, like we were talking about earlier. It's like, do you want to keep drudging up something? Let's just say you had an argument with somebody and they cursed you out or pissed you off, and so every time you think about that, you can get mad again.
Mm-hmm.
But the argument happened last night, so here you are today, 16 hours later, and you're still mad about it because you keep replaying it in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not in the now. That's a perfect example of being in the past. So when we consider this thing to be a toxic situation, all that's associated with that, because some people have been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah.
So they've been engaged in a toxic behavior. Or is it a toxic behavior? Can it just be a behavior? And by not labeling it, so when we don't label it, I think that allows us to ascend a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
lighten the load, and just recognize that that's not who you are.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand that that's not who you are, because then you have more control, and and it's not going to happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about saying stuff is hard, we got to pay attention to what we say. I mean, we've done some work and we're going to be doing some more work, but that's an energetic principle. And we definitely talk about energy just in general, because
so not judging what you're doing, not judging your actions, but just being able to observe the effect it's having, and then see if that's an effect that you want it to be having in your life or not.
Definitely observe.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, if you're doing no fab, you already know that's not something that you want, or you at least want to be in control of.
Mm-hmm.
So
someone just asked a question, it looks like. What about having sex or kissing someone you don't have a true connection with?
That's a good question. I'm sure we've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
Been in relationships where it's a comfort relationship or it's a convenience relationship, whether it's for sex or maybe they look good or maybe whatever the case may be, but it's not a true authentic
energetic
connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unconditional love. It's just what you're doing for the moment. And it might take a little time to actually decide that I'm not going to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather. There's a song out by, I think it's Patti LaBelle, but one of the lines in the song is that I can do bad all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if you're in a situation that you're not resonating with, so there's no other, either you're resonating with it and it feels okay,
mm-hmm.
or it's uncomfortable, in which there's some kind of friction, which now we're talking about cognitive dissonance, because you're doing something you don't really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But why do that? Why put yourself at an energetic deficit
mm-hmm.
when you can just be at peace by yourself until you find that person? And you'll know that when you have that connection with them. So and the other thing is, obviously, if it's not a big deal, I mean, if you both agree, we're just doing this because we ain't got nothing else to do, that's fine. If it's not that's not hurting you, because
mm-hmm.
you both have agreed to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in a relationship with this person, like, I got to get away from her, I got to get away from him, it drive me crazy or whatever, I just don't like when they do this or they say that or whatever, and there's all this friction. I call
mm-hmm.
it friction of resistance to what is. Then if that's what's happening inside of you, then you definitely want to get away from that. And it might be hard at first because you're used to it. It's just, that's a perfect example of NoFap, because you're used to doing it, but when you do it, how it makes you feel.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, I'm stuck in between a rock and a hard place. But as you start to understand a little bit more about yourself and tap into the parts of you so you can have joy and pleasure from within, and that's true
mm-hmm.
joy and pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can share that with other people when it's true joy and pleasure.
Exactly. And one thing we were talking about earlier actually is that Chris brought up the way that vibrations are transferred over to different things. And so it's like, it is good to be cautious with who you're sharing your energy with and who you get intimate with, because that energy that they have is going to transfer onto you, and then whatever energy you have is going to transfer onto them. So you need to also be weary of just like protecting your energy and asking yourself if the person you're going to be intimate with, if that's an energy that you want to have in your life, if that's something that you want to absorb into you, because even if it's a subtle way, it'll still affect you. Like, even if it's super subtle and nothing even that noticeable, it'll still affect you. Sometimes it shows up when you have that empty feeling inside of you, or you feel low, or you just feel kind of empty, like sometimes that is energy that's carried over from what you did with someone else earlier, you know.
Mhm. So again, good examples, because I can just kind of elaborate on that a little bit, because it represents, again, it's just another form of label though, because there's the part of you that just is peace. And let's just use that one word as opposed to love or joy. Just to say there's a part of you that's just peace. It's naturally peaceful, and nothing can disturb that, because that's what it is and that's who you are. So when you're feeling down, or when you're feeling depressed, or any other emotion that's not, a positive emotion, then you're not identifying with the peace, the part of you that is peace. So when you start to identify with that, so then you can be in situations that might not be so comfortable maybe for somebody else, or even might not have been comfortable to you in the past, but now you understand that that's not who you are. And so society does a great job of trying to define who we are, by buying stuff, by learning this, that, and the other, and attaching that. And that's where the ego comes in. That part of us, that ego self, the part of us that thinks that we have to have this and have to do that and have to be the boss and blah 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 blah. That's not the peace within you. Because the peace within you is always, and it's always there, and it's always going to be peace. You can't change that. So the question is, how do you identify with the peace more so than with the other aspects of self? And we just said this a little bit earlier. It is challenging. It's challenging. It's like, trying to build a healthy body. I mean, if you're fat and out of shape, then it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time to get your body in shape. And the same thing with your mind, from the standpoint that you can release connection or attachment and tap into true self. So then it's really good, and it's really powerful when we can recognize what we're saying, and when we can distinguish that, wait a minute, that's not peace, because peace doesn't talk like that. And then you do that over and over and over and over again, or when you get the urge to masturbate. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all, but peace won't have the urge to masturbate. So you can say, okay, well, let me align myself with my higher self. If I can do that for 30 seconds, if I can do that for a minute, if I can do it for 2 minutes until the urge passes, or as you always say, find something healthy to replace that. But ultimately, we want to be operating from our highest possible self, our highest possibilities. And it takes practice to get there. So, you might have to replace it with something healthy for now until you can rise to that level, or just open that door, because it's there all the time.
So what do you think are like some examples of healthy habits that people could incorporate into their life instead of masturbating and watching porn, or doing like things that take away their energy? And that's the thing too, I think it's important because it's weird. It's like, yeah, I think you're right. You don't want to put judgments or labels on anything that you're doing, because then you set up a certain relationship in your mind to that thing. But at the same time, you also need to identify just what things in your life are taking away your energy, and then what things in life are giving you energy. And then ask yourself what you want to line up with. Like, it's not that masturbating or porn is bad or toxic, but do you want to line up with the effects that those things bring into your life? And like Chris said, if you're operating from peace or from your higher self, then naturally you won't be lining up with porn or masturbation or any other habits that take away your energy. So I think one of the most important things to look for when you're trying to replace unhealthy habits with healthy habits is whether you're replacing it with things that give you energy instead of taking it away. So that just takes a lot of like sensitivity to be able to tell, because sometimes you might think that you're doing something healthy even when it's actually having the opposite effect on you. Like, you might think that a certain friendship is healthy, but then afterwards you might feel low energy and drained, and then you might feel, I don't know, it's like you need to be really aware of just the way you feel after you do anything in your life. Like, even with food, like people think that certain foods are healthy, but then they eat them, and then right afterwards they just want to take a nap, or they just feel really sleepy after. And it's like, was that giving you energy or did it take your energy away? Like you need to question that with every single thing you do in your life, and then just figure out what things are giving you energy and keep those things.
Right. So you asked what are some of the healthy things you can do to replace habits that aren't so healthy. So we can look at this a couple of ways. First, let's look at it as you said, which is really important. When you do something, does it actually take energy from you or does it give you energy? So from a physiological, the body standpoint, the mental standpoint, when you do certain things, let's start with the body first. So say, for example, if you ate a fresh kale, fruit salad, and you ate a cheeseburger, there's a definite difference in the energy that those two meals are going to provide for the body. One of them is going to basically pull your energy down because it is a very low vibrational food, and the other one is going to enhance your energy because it's providing energy for you. So that's the first thing. The actions the behaviors that you decide, or whatever you decide to replace one habit. Are you replacing one low energy habit with another low energy habit, or are you replacing it with a high energy habit? So as far as being healthy is concerned, then how do you define health? Do you just want to be able to walk to the corner and back without being out of breath? Do you want to be able to pick your kids up? Or, there's some guidelines that the American Heart Association or different fitness organizations have established, such as ACSM or NASM, NASM, or ACE. These are different organizations, or even, like I said, the National Heart Association, WHO, which is World Health Organization. But anyway, for example, adults should do 30 minutes of exercise 5 days a week. And out of those 5 days, 2 days should be either resistance training, which means lifting weights and strengthening the bone and muscles and joints and tendons and ligaments.
And this is based off of
this is based off of a lot of different organizations, health organizations that suggest a certain amount of exercise to maintain a certain level of health and wellness for the average adult. So that, as I said, that's 30 minutes 5 days a week, and out of those 5 days, some days doing weightlifting to maintaining the integrity of the muscle skeletal system. And then the other 3 days doing some type of cardiovascular exercise to maintain the integrity of the cardiovascular system, which is the heart, the lungs, the circulatory system, moving fuel and oxygen throughout the body and burning calories. So if we want to be healthy, then we need to have some type of physical activity built into our lifestyle. Now, as far as like maybe trying to do something instead of no fab, maybe you find a hobby. Maybe you like to put together, models. Maybe, I don't want to say like play video games because that's not necessarily the healthiest thing you can do. But maybe, maybe you want to grow plants, or maybe you want to make jewelry, or maybe you want to write a book, or you want to write poetry, or you want to do yoga, or you want to learn how to cook healthier meals.
Like all these things, ideally, it would be something that can help you live an easier life. Like ideally, you'd be investing your time into habits and things that can help set you up for a better future. Like whether that be building something, like that's something that I talked about too, is that through this 90 days of no-fap, people who are doing that, it's like it's important to have something that you're putting the energy towards instead, that hopefully can be building on itself, like one habit that can you can keep building on that one thing, so that by the end you have something to keep building on. So you have just whether it's one skill that you want to really finely hone in on, or one book that you want to write, or one just to have something that builds on itself, so that, because the thing about sexual energy is that it's supposed to go into creating things, and so just finding something that you can continue to create for the world, or for yourself, or just bringing something into existence.
Yeah.
Someone just said, I'm a girl and I have never kissed someone. Would you say it's best to wait until I find someone I love, or is it okay to kiss someone you like? I'm 17.
Okay. 17 and never kissed anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
that's normal, I think.
I think it's, and I think also, how do you know when you love somebody? So you're saying you want to wait till you love somebody to kiss them. That's a tough one because it depends on who the other person is and what their motives are, if they have motives, or if they really do care about you. So, I mean, maybe just get to know somebody, make them spend some time with you. And at 17, it's not even that serious though. So, as far as like trying to develop a serious relationship at 17, you probably want to be focusing on, getting to know yourself a little bit better and some of the things that you want out of life, and then, driving towards that. Because we can get derailed by so-called relationships, especially at that young age. Well, I love him, and now you definitely have what we call unconditional love, and even if it's love. But the point is, find out a little bit more about yourself. This is a great time to, know who you are. You'll be way more attractive to other people when you are so confident and confident about yourself and passionate about what you do and trust yourself and believe in yourself. And that's not coming from anything external like a boyfriend or whatever. So yeah, I would say get to know yourself better. And the other thing is the part about the peace, which is your higher self, is your higher mind as well. It's just the state of peace. But when you're tuned to your higher mind, you already know the answer to your question if you just sit quietly and ask yourself, should I really do this? And then just, as I said, sit quietly so that you can just feel the answer, not coming from your brain, but coming from how you feel about it, and you'll be able to understand that. So no, I would say spend that time getting to know yourself first. That's way more important, and then you will be way more desirable. So, we all need to do that. That's a great question. And if more people did that, spend time. I'm going to do a video on that anyway, so I'm not going to go too much into that right now. But get to know yourself first.
Yeah, it's true. And even if you're not 17, just for wherever you're at in your life, that's a good thing to do, because it's so common for people to just bounce from relationship to relationship to relationship and then they wonder why they keep having the same problems pop up in different relationships. It's because there was never any time spent trying to change momentum in a different direction. It was all just kind of like you're always going to attract the same problems until you learn how you can fix them yourself. Like, it's not that every guy you're with is this way, but you have to ask yourself why you're attracting a certain dynamic all the time, and men too, why you're attracting certain women all the time. It's like, just for wherever you're at in your life, just taking time for yourself to get to know yourself, figure out your emotions, and figure out who you are and where your boundaries are, what you even want out of relationships. That is huge when it comes to finding something sustainable.
Yep. Well said.
Anything else you want to talk about? We're almost at a half hour now.
Okay. We'll just kind of finish up with the healthy habits.
Yeah,
we just kind of talked about being creative and fulfilling yourself. So you want to feel fulfilled. So let's just talk about NoFap for a second. And when people do masturbate, are they doing that because that's what they really want? Because I think a little bit earlier we were talking about people and health, as far as if somebody says they want to be healthy, then we can have a conversation. But if they say, I love cheeseburgers, I love French fries, that's what I enjoy, and I'm not really concerned about taking care of my body, then there's no conversation. So the same thing with NoFap. And if people really are deciding this is something they don't want to do anymore, then you can have the conversation, and it's about recognizing that if that's your desire, then use what can help you to achieve it. So besides the healthy habits, but learning, and this is the part that takes time. The more you communicate with that aspect of self, that consciousness, that presence, that awareness, we say that all the time, but and it sounds foo-foo or spiritual mumbo jumbo, but when you do start recognizing it, it won't be foo-foo, spiritual mumbo jumbo, or any of that other stuff. And you'll see that it is a part of you that is basically where your most ability, your most power, your most intelligence, your knowledge, your awareness, it's all there. And earlier we were talking about the world we live in today and how I believe that there are intentional distractions. Whatever it is, there's plenty of drama, but nothing that talks about people's ability to change their reality. And so we have to take that upon ourselves. And so porn is prevalent, right?
Extremely prevalent.
And so it's easily accessible. I mean, drama's prevalent. The news is full of drama. I mean, TV's full of drama. You can find drama, and then you can find drama in your life if you're not conscious or aware of what's really happening. Because again, we keep talking about how you feel, and that's important. If you feel uncomfortable in a situation, you feel uncomfortable with somebody, or you feel uncomfortable about something you're doing, then so when I get an example of, do you really want to be healthy? Do you really want to eat healthy? Do you really want to feel comfortable? Do you really want to feel good? Because I would venture to bet and believe that a good 95% of people on this planet do not feel good about themselves and in their lives, and they feel like they're trapped in a situation.
Yeah.
When we have the power. So we were talking about earlier about how you can be in peace and just be in love with yourself and be in love with your life and be in love with the act of actually being here and the experience of being here, and recognizing that as opposed to, the material things, like the stuff that's external. We get to know the inner part and get to know the true self, and then you can easily bring stuff into your life. That's not a problem. It's learning how to do that intentionally and consciously, as opposed, because we're always creating.
Yeah.
Whether we do it consciously or unconsciously, and most of us do it unconsciously. So learn how that process works, and then start doing it consciously. And so with the NoFap thing, if you decide that that's something you don't want to do, then it's going to be challenging at first. But the key is, because you don't have to do a lot. It's about being. So you want to be in a place where you get help from yourself. And so I know that when you're engaged in that, the goal is just to get that feeling that you get at the end of that act.
Yeah.
And so you're caught up in that, and like you said, it's a cycle. You do it. I mean, so you do it so often that it becomes toxic from the standpoint that it takes away from other aspects of your life. But it's not a toxic act itself, but the consequences can be toxic because they might affect other aspects of your life. And then you have to decide, is this something that you really want to keep doing? And so, yeah, I mean, there's the initial challenge, just like maybe somebody quitting smoking or quitting drinking or quitting doing drugs initially, because it's a habit. Initially, it's really challenging. It can be done, but it's challenging. And so you got to weather that storm for however long that lasts. And in the meantime, you don't just sit there like just fighting the urges. Do something else. That's where you said find something healthy to do. Like start writing, do a journal, maybe even do a journal about how you feel about when those urges come and what happened to trigger that urge. And
write out how you would feel right after you gave into the urge. Just like remember how these things make you feel, because I feel like it's kind of the same way where if people drink a lot, the next morning they'll be like, oh, I'm never having alcohol again ever.
Right.
But it's like, but then of course it happens again, and they say the same thing. So it's just like right before you do it, just think about, okay, how would I feel right after this?
Right. That's a good point. Good example. Yeah.
Oh, someone, same girl asked, what if you find someone you like, but that person doesn't do NoFap and still watches porn? Should I not be in a relationship with them, even though you like who that person is?
Do you really like that? Do you really like who that person is? Is part of what you want out of your partner or mate somebody that does do NoFap and does watch porn? Or does that not matter to you? And it might be right now where you're like, it doesn't matter, I still like him, that's not a big deal. So
I think, though, it's important to know that you can have exactly what you want. Like, you don't need to settle. So if you genuinely want someone who doesn't watch porn, then you can get that. And you don't need to, like, just settle for someone who you, just because you like them, because there's going to be tons of people that you'll meet who you will like, but you don't need to compromise on your values if it really is compromising your values. Unless you feel like it doesn't really matter to you, then sure. But it's like, you have to be honest with yourself if you're just giving in because it's because like they're here, they like you and you like them, or it's because you genuinely feel like it doesn't matter as much to you.
And you know, she's 17, so we've all been 17, and you know, there's a different mentality at 17, a different mindset. Although I will say that women are usually a little bit more mature than men. So a 17-year-old guy and a 17-year-old girl, the girl will usually be more mature. But be that as it may, at 17, you know, you're kind of like reaching that age where you are becoming a young adult. So you get to make some decisions for yourself, and hopefully that's where your foundational information comes. Your foundation comes from your parents. So, you know, having some values or morals or just certain beliefs that were instilled in you as you're growing up. Now, I'm not saying that all those will be good and all those will be bad, but or that you will be able to that you will believe everything that you were, you know, taught as a child from your parents. Some things you might not agree with as you become older, but again, you're reaching that age where you got to make some decisions. So I mean, you know, I understand that you're 17. I'm just saying, just be more introverted, meaning just tune into yourself more. Actually, you know, trust yourself, and not based on. Okay, so here's what you do. You can sit down and just, you want to write this down or not, but you list all the reasons why you like this person. And when you say the things that you like about them, how does that make you feel about this person? And then, for example, you might like, you know, their age, you might like their sign, you might like how tall they are, you might like that they're a basketball player, you might like that they, their body or whatever the case may be. These are all things that are external, but these are things that we say we like about a person. And then the question is, how do you feel about yourself? Because a lot of times we like qualities in other people that we either wish we had ourselves.
Exactly.
And that's getting really deep, but
no, that's true. That's so true.
But the bottom line is, that's why I say, just, you know, spend a little time. Okay, so even if you like this person, that's fine, but spend some time with yourself. Spend some time, you know, just being quiet for 5 minutes, meditating for 5 minutes. You will grow so much from that. Just 5 minutes a day, just being quiet and paying attention to the thoughts that come to your mind. There's people younger than 17 that meditate, and it's something. It's one of those things that you want to do on a daily basis, or at least a couple of times a week, because it allows you to access parts that are just not accessible any other way. If you're not quiet and still, then you won't be able to access that part of you that speaks to you when you're quiet and still.
And I will say though too, is that, you know, you mentioned before that you said you have never kissed someone, and I would assume that means you probably have never had sex either. And I don't think women realize, like, growing up, the way sex really affects you. Like, all I'm saying is that if there's something about this guy that you don't resonate with, just be really picky about who you allow inside of you. You know, it affects you on a really deep level that you won't truly understand unless you try it. But I'm not saying to try it. I'm just saying you have to really be aware of the energy that you're taking on when you have sex with someone. So just reflect on the things that you want out of someone, and yeah, you don't need to compromise. And what did you say? You said, I don't like someone at the moment, but if that situation would happen, I was wondering what to do, because I think I wouldn't like it if they did watch porn and masturbated. Okay, so yeah, so just keep that in mind. Just don't compromise on something that you know you are looking for.
Right, because what that does is, as she said, that'll affect you in the long run. You are setting yourself up for internal conflict, and it's not comfortable. So being in a situation that you don't feel good about, especially if you chose that situation, if you have a choice, then you want to choose a situation that's going to make you feel, at peace. I use the word, just feel at peace with the situation. You're at peace because you don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to return text messages or phone calls. You don't have to be at a certain place at a certain time to meet somebody. There may be days you want to do that, but there's the days that you don't. So when you're at peace, you get to do what you want to do when you want to do it.
Yeah.
And you're not being controlled by anybody else. So then when we get in relationships and we start compromising and do, which they say relationship is that though. A relationship is to a certain degree, you're with a person and they want to do certain things that you might not want to do, but you're doing with her because you want to be with her, or you're doing with him because you want to be with him. And so that just becomes a question of whether that's really too much of a compromise for you. Like if you meet somebody and they're like, babe, let's go rob a bank. Robbing no bank, or they say, let's go watch this. I want to go see the new. I want to go watch a basketball game. That's totally different. You definitely don't want to rob a bank, but you might not like basketball either. But you might be willing to go watch the basketball game. But are you willing to go rob the bank? That's that's going too far. So the point is, and that's just an extreme example, but anything that you don't feel comfortable with, you shouldn't have to do. And in a relationship with somebody that really has, it's unconditional love, which we'll talk a lot more about that in the future. But the bottom line is, just being with somebody because you love and appreciate and respect them just the way they are, and they love and appreciate and respect you just the way you are, and nobody's trying to change anybody.
Yes, exactly. And it's like it seems so simple, but it's just if you naturally like them, if you just naturally like that person, there's nothing about them that you want to change. You're not going into things thinking that you're gonna, warp and mold this person to be someone that they're not who they are right now. Just be with people who you naturally like, who you just like, you already like who they are. And what else? You said something else that made me think of something. I can't remember. Oh yeah, with the compromising thing is that, you will have to compromise in certain areas, but get really clear on your values, like what your values are, and don't compromise on those things. So just get really clear about your values, the things that are non-negotiable for you. And then after that, other things you can kind of take it case by case.
Right. Good point. Yeah. Definitely don't want to be negotiating with your happiness and your peace of mind
and your well-being.
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of people are caught in that trap and think that they have to stay there. There's a lot of circumstances that surround every individual relationship. So each relationship is probably different, but there's still a lot of people that basically are caught in situations that they might not really want to be in. And so then you might just have to be at peace in the moment. Then you might have to do the non-resistance thing, because that means, I'm here and, I just don't want to be here. So that's just feeling terrible, where you can just be there and knowing that, you have plans, whatever those plans are, whether you're going to change things or you're going to work things out, then, then there's just don't resist what is, because that just complicates the problem. You're already not happy with the situation, and now you're not happy that you're not happy. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So whatever's going on, you're unhappy with that, and now you're unhappy because you're unhappy, and so, or you're angry because you're unhappy. So just be. And then that's another part about just being, because when you tap into that part of yourself, so we don't have to have all the answers all the time, but because there's a part of us that does. And if you just turn to that part of yourself, we call it higher self-conscious awareness. Some people call it God, some people call it spirit, whatever the case may be, trusting, but it's a part of you. So you trust a part of you, and then you will be kind of guided. But you have to trust the process. You have to trust it. You have to tap into it. You can't, it's not like, okay, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I was on the treadmill for 2 weeks and I only ate one meal and I only lost 3 pounds. So this doesn't work. So give me a cheeseburger. You know what I'm saying? Give it time.
Yeah.
Give it time. And it will start to manifest, and things will start to, unfold in a more prosperous, positive, powerful way. But, we're always going to have our challenges. And so part of being able to deal with the challenge is just knowing, that separation we talked about way earlier at the beginning of this, when we talked about, knowing who you truly are. And then, the things that we identify with, like ego and, conditioned mind and form, and thinking that's who we are, and then buying into that. And that just pulls us into this whole cycle of emotional, distress and unhappiness, because we're identifying with something that's not really us. And 99% of people don't recognize that. So the sooner we recognize that, everybody can be at peace, because they are at peace. We just tap into it. And it does take work though, but it's not as hard as losing 50 pounds. It's easier to tap into peace than it is to lose 50. I think so.
Yeah. So just to recap, you guys, some healthy habits that you can incorporate into your life. Look at your eating habits. Ask yourself how you could improve what you're eating. Like if there's a way for you to consume less animal products, to introduce more fruits and vegetables into your diet, that can help you a lot. To take 5 minutes a day to meditate. Just take 5 minutes to set aside some time for you to focus on your breathing, focus on the present moment, and just practice watching your thoughts and not identifying with them. Another thing you can do is to start not judging your thoughts. So like Chris talked about earlier, if you end up masturbating or you end up doing certain things that you don't want to be doing, to not label those things as toxic or unhealthy, just kind of not putting any emotional baggage onto it can help you overcome it quicker. And is there any other things?
And then engage in some type of physical activity, which we kind of talked about, but let's just real quickly, like she said, draw a correlation between energy and exercise, and expending certain amount of energy so you don't have to expend it through the other way. So if you want to do a little exercise, but exercise also helps energize your body. In the past, we talked about how when you release that energy, sexual energy, then you're releasing, a part of yourself. And so that was designed to actually create another life form. So learn how to maintain that energy so it doesn't leave the body. But even with exercise and becoming more energetic, and exercise makes you feel confident. People may say that they're comfortable or satisfied with how they look if they're, not necessarily in the best shape. There's nothing wrong with loving yourself, but at the same time, if you were healthier, you would feel better.
Yeah, so that is loving yourself, is wanting to be healthier.
Right. Yeah. But you have these people that say, big is better, or I'm big and beautiful. And I'm not saying that there aren't big people, and I'm not judging. I definitely don't want you to take this as judgment. But what I'm saying is, there's a certain, we'll call it homeostasis, which is the natural size the body should be. And when you're there, you'll feel different. So you might, I say this all the time to my students. I say, none of us feels 100%. We feel good. We can all feel better. So if you think you're feeling good now, you can feel a little bit better. And most of the time it's because of the things that is because of how we think. It's what we believe, is how we feel. So back to what the question. So do some type of exercise. That's another thing you can do. You said pay attention to your thoughts, meditate. Become involved in, some type of hobby or activity that, as you said earlier, can enhance your life down the line. So maybe you are writing a book, maybe you are writing poetry, maybe you are making jewelry, maybe you're taking a class that's going to help you, maybe you want to be creative though.
Creating something,
pottery, and I know these are artistic things, but maybe you want to take music lessons, or maybe you just want to go for a run, or just do something that's going to enhance you. So swimming or running, or whether it's the creative thing, writing or painting, or
it could even be something. Yeah, it could even be something as simple as journaling, just creating something, just like putting something that from your head out into the world, whatever form it is. But yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for joining us for this live stream, you guys.
Yep. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye-bye. I like to say, namaste. Cool.